Hey, I'm Travis, and welcome to the Flaps Up Test Kitchen. Today, I'm so excited. This is one of my favorite things to throw on the smoker. Last weekend, I had a BCA competition and I took a full packer brisket and trimmed it up competition style. What does that mean? Well, that means I have a ton of point meat that I cut into little cubes that I'm gonna throw on the smoker and make brisket burnt ends. So, what I'm gonna do first is marinate these. I'm just going to take them out, throw them in a pan, and I already have a marinate that I prepared earlier and let it sit so it mixes up pretty well. I'm going to take these, throw the marinade over it, put it back in the refrigerator for about 30 minutes, maybe even 45. Take them out, dry them off, and then season them. But you're going to be there every step of the way. These are one of my family's favorites. They always ask me to bring these for Christmas to Thanksgiving. This is the dish that everybody wants. So stay tuned. Can't wait to pull these out and put the layer of flavor. Hey, welcome back. So what I ended up doing is I took these and about 30 minutes into them marinating, I took them out of the refrigerator and I gave them a little bit of a field test. A lot of these marinades will have some sort of meat tenderizer in it, so you just got to be careful that you don't overdo it. Now, all we're going to do is we're going to take it and we're going to transfer all these pieces into a drying rack. The reason we do this, really two. One, it helps get some of that liquid to drip off of the burnt ends. Liquid is good when you're cooking to add a little bit of liquid. But what we don't want is too much liquid when we go to season these. So once we get them all out, we're going to spread them out just a little bit. I'm going to take a paper towel and I'm just going to tap them dry. This will allow the seasoning to actually adhere and stick to the meat. Once we start cooking, that liquid, if I don't wipe it off, that liquid is just going to give another layer. And as the meat starts to sweat in the cold smoker or in the smoker, it's gonna make that rub kind of wash off a little bit. So with us just lightly tapping to dry, that's gonna adhere a little bit better and it will allow the smoke to meet the rub and start building that nice crust. So once we got them all dabbed off, I'm gonna come in with a 3-layer flavor system. First off, I'm going to use a little SPG. It's going to make every Texan proud because nothing goes on beef better than salt, pepper, and garlic. This has a light coat. All I want to do is get some of that seasoning into the meat. I'm just going to season one side, then when I flip it over, I'm going to mix it up. Our next rub is a heavy dose of pepper with some chili powder and a color from paprika that will make these incredible. These things, with this seasoning on them, they are going to build a nice bark. Another light coat of this, again, I'm gonna roll them up, mix them up, and all that seasoning is gonna get all over the place, and then we're gonna put it back in the refrigerator and let it sit. Lastly, we're gonna add a little bit of a sweet, smoky rub to finish it off. This is just gonna give you that really incredible savory bite that you're looking for when you do a burnt end. And again, this is simple as that. We're gonna let it sit in the refrigerator. Once we mix it up, we're gonna sit it probably about an hour as we get the smoker lit. We want our smoker temp to be perfect. We don't want any fluctuation. Once these go on, we want it to actually get to the temp that we want and kind of stay there for about 15-20 minutes with no fluctuation. One of the bad things with beef There's not a lot of fat in these. So if you get a fluctuation of temp, you can go from bad to worse, and we don't want that. We want everybody to come over and enjoy these. So stay tuned. We're gonna let these sit for about an hour. We're gonna light the smoker and get these things on. We just took the brisket tips out of the marinade. We have them seasoned and back in the refrigerator. Now it's time to get our fire started. Today we will be cooking on a gravity fed smoker. It's what I like to call a big boy pellet. Basically, you fill the hopper with charcoal, you light a fire underneath, and as it burns, the charcoal will just shoot down the charcoal chute. It'll produce smoke, it'll give us the flavor that we want, and the exact temp. There's a fan that blows to make sure that temp stays constant. So today we're just going to be using some briquettes. We're not doing a super long cook on these. It's not going to take more than a couple of hours for them to get the smoke, and then we're going to put them back on with some barbecue sauce. It's only going to take another hour and a half after that. So we're not going to fill the chute all the way full. Basically, you fill it up, like I said before. We're going to take a fire starter, place it in the bottom, light it, let it get up. Once the fire goes out and the charcoal is lit, we'll close these doors. We'll open the door to the fan. We'll set the temp about 275, and then we'll be cooking. So we transferred all of the beef tips that are going to be burnt ends onto a larger drying rack with a pan underneath it. We made sure that we separated all the meat so that there could be equal smoke on all the sides. We're going to run it like this for approximately 2.5 hours, running our gravity fed smoker at 275 degrees. We're going to be running this with hickory chips. Why do we pick hickory? Hickory just goes with all kinds of meat. We really like the hickory taste. If this was a traditional Texas cook, we would be using mesquite. But mesquite has a harsher taste that if you let it smoke a little too long can become bitter. We're using chips today. Another reason is not necessarily we want a ton of smoke on these things. So the chips allow us to add a little or not any at all to get the right amount of smoke. If we used actual chunks of wood, the wood would eventually burn, therefore giving a little too much smoke to where we want it just to be a perfect hint of the hickory smoke. All we do here is we open the bottom of the hopper. There's a little pan down there. All we're gonna do, unwet, just dry chips, we're just gonna throw a handful in. We're gonna watch it to make sure we get the right amount of smoke. The back side of the vent we have to about 1/3 open. Now all we have to do is close it up and let her cook. All right, now there is a big saying in barbecue world. if you're looking, you ain't cooking. So it is very important to know fire management and know what type of meat you're cooking. Our fire management has been really good on this gravity fed. We've been at 275 for the last 2.5 hours. Hasn't fluctuated any at all. Put the handful of wood chunks in it, had beautiful blue clear smoke. So this is the first time we're gonna open it. I'm gonna open it and we're gonna check the temp. What we're looking for is anywhere from about 160 to about 179. That means they're good and ready. We're looking for a nice crust, and then we're gonna add to the next step of flavor. So they look great. They got a little bit of color. They got some nice bark, and we're right at 163. So we're right where we want to be. So the next step is to take them off of this drying rack, add a few different ingredients. Now, with these being so lean and trimmed up, there's not a lot of fat. So what we're looking to do is we're looking to add a little bit of fat. We're gonna do this by the use of some butter. We got about 2/3 of a stick of butter, and we cut them into little chunks, about 1/4 inch. What we're gonna do here, we're gonna spread them around so that this kind of introduces a little bit of the fat that we're missing and lacking from a fat cap of a brisket. Once we do this, we're gonna add the second secret ingredient that's gonna take these over the top. You've had burn-ins, you've probably had them with a cup or a half cup of brown sugar. They're sweet with a little bit of a traditional barbecue sauce. Well, we're gonna turn that upside down, and we're actually adding a little bit of our special cocoa coffee rub. Now this is an easy rub to make. All it is half and half parts of cocoa and coffee. We add a little bit of brown sugar and salt to ours, but you don't have to. What happens is the coffee, as it cooks, it'll become bitter. So kind of to combat that, we add a little bit of a cocoa and some sweetener like a brown sugar or a turbinado sugar to sweeten it up, to kind of take that bitterness away. Now we're gonna let that go uncovered for about, I'd say about 20 minutes. Then we're gonna come back out here, we're gonna cover it up and let it run for another 20 minutes before we add the sauce. And the sauce is something special. We have a traditional Texas pepper, cracked black pepper, in a tomato-based sauce that's gonna go amazing on these things. So stay tuned. We can't wait until we get these in our mouth. All right, we ran these introducing a little bit of fat with about 2/3 of a stick of butter. We let it run for about 20 minutes, and then we covered it and we ran it for another 20 minutes. So about 40 minutes into the process, we're gonna take them out and we're gonna add the final layer of flavor. Now these things look amazing. They're temping right at probably about 180. I just want to let them go until they get super tender. The last step is the Texas pepper barbecue sauce. About half a cup. We're just going to lightly coat. While these are wrapped, they have the butter juice in there. They're going to start rendering some of their own fat and create a little bit of moisture. So I don't want this full of just nothing but juice. I just want to add flavor. Half a cup of that barbecue sauce. Again, it's a Texas pepper, cracked black pepper, a little bit of tomato sauce. It's really rich. It's got the good Texas flavors. We're gonna let that sit, and that's just gonna render in all of that flavor for hopefully another 30 minutes. We're gonna temp them. We're gonna keep probing them because this is the important time. The rest of it was just, hey, fire management. We know what kind of beef we're cooking, so we know about the time. but this is the crunch time. This is where you want to pull them anywhere from about 205 to 213 is when they're just really going to break down and start becoming juicy, tender, just morsels of brisket burnt ends. So we're going to watch it carefully, come back out here every, say, 10 minutes, check the temp until they're just right. And then we're going to pull them off, we're going to rest them, and then all that's left is enjoying them. So, all day long we've been waiting for this moment. We temped them and they were coming up to about 209. And the thermometer or the temp probe was going in like butter. When I say that, I mean when it was going in, there was no resistance, and when I pulled it back, there was no meat pull. So I know these things are tender. All we have to do now is unwrap them and see what we have. I can't wait. Oh, these things are beautiful. They're sitting in that au jus, that juice with the butter, the coffee rub that we put in there, the barbecue sauce, that Texas pepper really makes them pop. We marinated them for about 30 minutes, 35 minutes. We seasoned them up, left them in the refrigerator, and then cooked them at 275 for 2.5 hours. Then we added the butter, the extra fat, a little bit of that coffee rub, and these things are absolutely, they're gorgeous. These things, all you would have to do, get you a toothpick, put it in here, put it on a plate, put a piece of jalapeno on it, put it on a bed of a pickle. These things would be great as an appetizer, but we're not going to stop there. These aren't going to be an appetizer for us. What these are going to be is a perfect barbecue sandwich. So we started out with toasting just a normal regular bun. We're going to put some bacon on it because bacon makes everything better. Then a few pieces of these succulent. Oh, look at that juice coming off of them. These are going to be so good, so tender, so full of flavor with that coffee, that barbecue rub, everything. It's going to be great. We're going to take a little bit more of that Texas pepper because it's got that kick of that black pepper, the coarse ground, a little bit of tomato. I mean, it's just going to bring it to life. And to stay true to fashion, a few onions on top, a few pickles, and this sandwich is ready to eat. Cut it in half. Man, look at that right there. Perfect bite every time. I know my mom told me not to talk with my mouth full, but I just have to share how good this sandwich is. It's got all those flavors, that beefiness, the Texas pepper sauce, the coffee rub, the onion, the pickles. Oh my God, the bacon takes it over the top. I'm telling you guys, all you have to do is kick the tires, light the fires. It's barbecue time.